Hi, Jeff. This will be my second try at this. I screwed up the first time, so hopefully I don't lose it this time. Here's our big skylight. We got the roof one, and then we got the little side guys down here. Um, the basic thing is we want to measure the concrete, not the existing skylight so much. We're going to make the skylight be what it needs to be to fit the concrete. So we get a high roof, a little sloping area, and then a low roof. And there's an expansion joint here, another one right here at the top, and a third one there. I think the smartest way to do, and the expansion joints are curbs kind of poured back to the curb that we sit on. So I think there's sort of a natural measure here, measure this one, measure here, measure that, and then we can kind of put them all together and make the skylight to kind of fit the four areas. Um, we could fool around with all these concrete beams in here, but there's so much adding and subtracting, something's getting it a little goofy. I wouldn't bother with them. They don't affect us. We're going to line up. Per the drawings, they should be 8'4" on center. So if you want to spot check a few and just pull 100 on center, just check it. I'm not going to be real worried if they're plus or minus an inch, just so the trend is always 100 inches. So, I'm going to start down here on the low end. Obviously, you need to get on the roof to measure this one, I think. Bring along a snips, some caulk, a little bit of metal. If there's places where flashing is blocking you from measuring the concrete, we need to cut it open, get in there, measure the concrete, and then patch it up. So, where all the curbs hit, they're all flush. So that means we can't really go right to the corner, but we can go to the inside corner or we can go to the outside face. And then I gave you an inside number, 11'8", and an outside 13 foot. And you can check the outside really only in a few spots. And if you can get inside and get a couple of the inside ones, like the middle, wherever you can, just to keep track, make sure it's straight. So, but in here, where you have the expansion joint, you've got an 8-inch curb running in and another 8-inch curb with a 1-inch space. So I figure if we measure from inside to inside, that we can get for sure. And if you get the inside ones in each pan, kind of, and then get me an overall width at the expansion joint, I can piece it together from there. If you can get into the expansion joint itself and kind of go from either side of the 1-inch gap and then pull out to out, that's even better. Now it's only the gap that could be off. Either way, I still need that width. So, and I gave you both. That's the inside, that's the outside. And I'll give you the drawings. I'm working on them. Over here, we can't go out, but we can go to the point where the slope changes. We don't want to fool down here because things are pitching, but try to get to that point. And that's where I think you're going to have to cut the flashing back a little bit. Then you'll also need to measure up the hill to go point to point, but it's less than 30 feet. Hopefully it's not too bad. And then we would have another little one from the point to this curb right here. So that's the basic idea of everything that I've done, is measure the concrete, take it in chunks that you can get to, and check the width to make sure it's not doing something weird. And then that gives us the basic dimensions. Then comes the pitch of the thing. So I think this roof is level. Or let me be careful how I say that. The curb on this roof I think is level. The beam below is level. The roof has actually got pitch built into it all over the place. So we should verify that this upper curb is level. There's a possibility it has a pitch as well of 0.35 inches in 100 inches, which is 0.20 something degrees. Very tiny angle. So you have to be careful that you don't get fooled just by roughness of the concrete. So bring your 4-foot level, take some care to get it calibrated, level up the level, and then zero out your angle on top of it, and then go back and check the pitch. This part here, I had trouble figuring out what it is, and then the angelic choir keyed in, and all of a sudden I found the right number, and it was a perfect 35-degree slope. So I'm pretty sure 35 degrees is what this will be. But again, make sure you know what truly is level. Then take your 4-foot stick and your angle finder on top of it and verify that we got 35. This section, this is the high point, and then it slopes down that 0.35 on 100, or 0.20 degrees. This one I'm certain is pitching, and it pitches to match this lower platform. So it's hard, you can't really just measure down to the ground because they're sloping together. It gets a little weird to work it out. So use your angle finder very carefully to check the pitch. We want to make sure we're checking on the concrete, not on the skylight, because they could shim the skylight. However, it might be that you have to get on the inside of here. When you see the pictures, it gets a little bit more clear that you might have a better chance at it on the inside. But get it on the outside if you can. So that's the top surface of the concrete. You're just running their length. You can spot check rafters. They should be 25 on center, 25 inches on center. We're going to build the new skylight 50 inches on center, and the concrete beams are 100 inches. So it's real similar to last year. It gets a little weird by the expansion joints, but we're not going to get too hung up with that. And then we'll see how we're going to frame out here. This comes out at an inconvenient spot. At all the expansion joints are like a half bay off for us, but I got a couple ideas to make that work and make it all look better than it does now. So that's for measuring the skylight. I'll also want you to take pictures of the ends, the expansion joints, the transitions to the slope, the typical slope, expansion, the gable end up here. I just want to see what they built, how they built it, and what we're replacing. I don't want to make the same mistakes they made. We want to keep it so that it looks like it got better, not worse. There's a couple things they did that don't look very good to me, so I think we can make it all look better. So that's the rooftop one. This is our single pitch, and the concrete is pretty simple down here. It's the skylight in between that makes it look complicated for measuring. Now one of these is up against the road. They're not going to let you go stand on the road to measure it, but you should be able to get on the tracks underneath it, and I think that's this one. The guy on the other side of the building, there's about 50 feet of green space over there, and I think they should let you out there so you can get on the outside and measure that one really good on the other side. That would be this guy. And it's similar enough that if that one's good, we're going to know what this one is. And then from the inside, I think we just need a couple simple dimensions, and we can verify what we're doing here. It's going to get real confusing if you measure the existing skylight. Don't really care what the existing skylight is. We care what the concrete is, so don't get too confused that there's a skylight already there. We want to know what it is, but focus on getting around it to get the concrete. So it's 40 feet from face of column to face of column. The column should be 20, and then 39 and 11 and a half to the wall. That's pretty easy. And then they got this little beam with this right angle to it, and that is pretty clear cut to measure, and I think you'll be able to kind of sneak in on the backside and measure that. You may have to extend a few lines with your level, but it looks pretty easy. If you can get it here, here, and at the wall, we can verify that it's 9 foot 10 and an eighth to the outside, and that it's 5 foot 5, so 65 inches up. That's not too bad. If we can get that and know what we're getting into, it's easy to do the skylight then. So take a bit to look at it. Let's go look at the detail real quick. The curb may or may not have a pitch. The drawings indicate that the wall has a 1-inch rise on it. And the wall on this side, which is by the green, is 9 inches wide, and the one by the road is a foot wide. But both of them have a 1-inch rise. It can be flat, it can have a 1-inch rise, 12, 9. I just need to know, and then we're going to go up and measure at this beam here. Don't worry about the skylight, how it notches under the beam. When I know what the concrete is, I can make the skylight to fit that. You don't have to fool with measuring all that crap. So we're just going to focus on the concrete. I know that this height from here to here is 4'4", or it's here to here, I think is 4'4". But we're not going anywhere near all the way up. We're going to hang it off the side here. So it's pretty easy. Here's our rooftop skylight. We're going to have our variable curb with some flashing. Eyeball the existing if you can, and let's just make sure it doesn't have a big wave or wow in it, like we got hit on King Street. So let's kind of eyeball it, see how straight everything looks, and if you get up underneath here, see if there's any big stacks of shims anywhere. That's making the skylight straight, even though the concrete's a little crooked. We'll see if we got a problem there or not. Here's a little windscreen up above. I'm assuming this is like the thing you were changing at the end of the other job for that Debs glass. I don't know if it helps on the roadside if you take one of these lights out and then try to go through here, but the cars are right over here. That looks just kind of iffy. I think it'll be better if you're on the inside. So that's that for the skylight. Let me go find some pictures and drawings, and we'll do that part, and I'll be back in a minute. So these are the as-built drawings from the architect. That does not mean this is what was built. This is what they originally drew, and then some subcontractor provided their standard product to get close to this, just like we do now. And but it's something to look at. It looks like there's just rubber on concrete for the roof. So make sure that when you're measuring, we sort of have an idea of how thick this is. Just so, if it's a ½ inch thick, let me know. I don't want to think the concrete is bigger than it is just because the roofing is huge. So you may have to poke it a little bit to get an idea of how thick that is. Here's a curb. I doubt they're going to have all this stuff in here. Like we were talking, you were going to put a D-ring, attach it to the existing skylight, and I think I found a D-ring to look at. This was one of them that I found online. It's like 2 inches tall, 4 inches long. It's got all the OSHA stuff, and then you can tie off to that, and you can screw it down to the frame. So I did find it. I imagine you found stuff too. And then that would be attached probably at each rafter to make sure it's at a good strong point. You could also put it on the concrete down here and just run it into the concrete sideways. And that would give you tie-offs, because we're going to need a way to tie off, because you got to be on the roof, and you know how that's going to play out. So make sure that we have everything that you need to go 400 feet down here. I don't think Cash is going to be able to build you 400 feet of railing, and especially when you're on this hill, you're going to need something to be tied off to. So get that, and then write up your head JHA and all that stuff. Althea's aware of it. She can help you type it up. Give her a call, let her know what you need, and then she can work on it, and you can just correct it. So that was back to that, and then I did something bad. Okay, so here's the details again. See, they drew the gable with 5 spaces. I think we're going to have 2. We'll have an expansion joint, but it'll be our detailing of the expansion joint. We'll have this all matched out. We'll make 2 equal lights. It's 5'10" to the inside, or 11'8" across the whole opening, and then 13'0" out to out. It's a little bit hard to check the out to out unless you're at the very end of the skylight. So I'm thinking the width we got to check on the inside, and the length you got to check on the outside. I don't know any other way you could do this. So this is the ridge. These are some of the details for the single pitch. And here they did want it to be 4 foot originally, but that's not what's built. When we look at the pictures, you'll see that. We're going to go back to doing what they wanted here, so it looks like the one on the roof a little bit better. That's the way we bid it, and that's where we're going to kind of go. So we'll still spot check what's there for the existing, but we're going to build to the concrete. Something to look for is all these cast reglets. I doubt they're really there, but give a look because then we got to decide how we want to flash. If we want to ignore them and just surface mount like we normally would, or do we want to try to use the reglet? I think I would rather not use them just so we can get the skylight a little bit higher up in the wall, and then we'll just cover all that stuff up. Um, I'm curious, the header to this concrete, what's that height? I don't want to accidentally expose a bunch of anchor blow holes without having a plan for how to fix it. So here you see the 9 foot 1 1/8 plus 9 inches there, and then the other one will be like a foot. It's kind of weird they made the curb different, but we just have to check it and then we'll be okay. So those are the details. Let's take a look at some photos. These are ones you took, and there's still a bunch of stuff in there. So this is an expansion joint. It looks like the concrete's doing something a little funny there. So that would be something to look at when you're on the inside. Just how even is this expansion joint? Is there a vertical displacement going on? We don't want it to have that. We want it to be flush. They were supposed to make the concrete with like a little shelf here so they would sit on each other and then just move left and right. It doesn't look like that's what they did. We also want to know at a typical rafter what the bolt spacing is so that we can aim our screws to be a little bit different than the existing. Here's the hill, the sloped area where it comes up and it transitions over, and then there's an expansion joint. And you can see the spacing is odd. You get a wide one and a skinny one and a typical, and then this one's a little bit bigger than a typical. We sort of want to avoid that if we take this bar out, and how does it work? I think this comes out, that comes out, and we keep that one. We can make them 2 equal spaces and just offset the expansion joint a bit. So we can make it look better, kind of clean it up. I'd like some pictures of this bar, how they transition it. It's pretty weird how that works, and I'm curious what they did and didn't do. I think they sort of blew off some of the quirks of the geometry, and I'd like to see what's there. Some typical ridge, another expansion joint with weird spacing. This is looking at the hill where it's going down. Their ridge detail is way bigger than ours is going to be, so it should clean up quite a bit when we put ours in. Here's the inside of the curb, and it looks like there's a little bit of a surface where you can put your level and check the pitch. So this should be sloping up. It's all, kind of perspective and funny looking. And you can see there's a little bit of a rounding here, so it'll be hard to get the exact surface. You're going to have to kind of use your judgment, pick a good point, and then measure up and down. And we'll see where we're at. Again, you can see a little bit better there. I'd like pictures of this, how they frame that. And also a typical one. It's a little weird. I can't quite tell what they're doing here. In some pictures it looks tipped, in other ones it looks vertical. It looks like they're going to do the same thing we did, but I'd like to make sure. It looks like they did what we're going to do. So there's that inside corner on the hill again. When you're underneath this little 35-degree pitch, you get an escalator and stairs and not much else to stand on to be underneath it. So there isn't a good place to check the pitch. If you could reach it, you could take your level and mark a line and then maybe measure 2 feet up. And if you're real careful about it, you could get me, X inches on 12-inch run or 24, whatever size you can get. I can do the math to go back. That might be another way to check that slope, just with a triangle and a level. So here's our single pitch. Now if you just imagine the skylight wasn't here, you can measure right up this edge and then over on here to the header and that gives us a perfect measure of the opening. And then you go from here to that one, and from that side over to there. It really doesn't look that bad for measuring. And you probably can run from this wall all the way to the other one and check that 80-foot run there. Be careful of the third rail. I don't know what Cash will have to make it safe to be here. Maybe he's got one of them little rail cars you can stand on. And you can tell on the other side of the building here it is all green. So that this looks like a good one where you could get on the outside with your jungle gear and machete, kind of cut yourself a trail. And then maybe get in there to get up and measure some of it on the outside too. Here's the column, and you can see this isn't a 4-foot space. That's not. So they did something weird, but we're going to kind of clean it back up and go to the 4-foot. It might be worth measuring these. That'll help us know where holes are for anchors. And then we'll get it all cleaned up and make it look pretty. None of this looks very straight. We'll kind of square ours up and make it look better. Looks like it's all sort of moved around over time. So here's the other end where you're at the existing wall. And again, it's a nice surface to measure on, and we can kind of go from there. To kind of take a picture of this to show me what's going on, it looks like the concrete might be sloping to match us. So we'd want to take note of that and try to work with it. But then it might be optical illusion too, because there's a little offset here. So it would be worth looking at what's going on in this corner where you come against the wall. Gable end, there's 3 spaces per side, not 5. And again, I think we're going to go right at the crossbar and right over, and we're going to make it be 4 spaces because that was going to look better. There's a little notch up here that's 4 by 8. You don't have to worry about the notch. I know about it. And then it's an 8-inch curb on top of that. So the beam is 12, 4-inch notch, 8-inch curb. That's exactly what should be there. So here's on top of looking through them glass dividers. You can see the single pitch. It looks like the counter flashing came off. I don't see a reglet on the back side, but there might be one here. There could be one there. I tend to think it's surface mount. That's what we would do. That's what we would like it to be. Kind of check out what that flashing is. It sure looks like you could be out here to get good look at everything on the outside rather than peeking through this little barrier. So again, there's more green space, the flashing. Kind of look and see what this texture is. Is it anything we need to worry about for flashing? Same piece. Same again. Obviously, you can't be out here on the road unless they're going to close the lane, which would be great. Then you could get out there. But if you measure one side, the other side should be the same. And you can check enough of it on the inside to make sure of that. So that's that. And there's a couple more pictures to look at. And then we'll be done. See if I can find it here real quick. Oh, there's the station. I don't know if anybody's talked about how to get material there. I don't know if it's going to run across the roof of the pedestrian bridge. If they got something where they're going to train it in. I don't know if they're going to park a crane in here to lift things up. That would be nice. But we need material to the low and the high. I'm not sure how that's going to work yet. So that's the pedestrian bridge. If you want to get a scissors lift in, that's where you'd have to come through. And this is on the other side of the gate, so you can't see the gate, but there's, like you said, there's got to be a pass-through to get by there. Skylights. There's the stairs underneath the sloping part in the middle. It doesn't look like a very easy way to get up there to measure anything. I think all we can do with the slope is work the outside and the angle finder. There's our little 2 skylights at the tunnel. It sure looks like that's just made to order for field measuring, is to check that square edge, and it will fit the skylight to match. is. We're supposed to put a diverter in here to keep water from flowing over the edge and staining this. So take some pictures of the outside and on the roof side so we can get an idea what caused the staining and then what we want to do to prevent it. I think we'll make a little saddle piece here, and then the roofer can run his flashing to the saddle, and we won't have that seam right there. Well, it shouldn't be too bad to make that. So there's the same gable end. We should probably look at the other gable end that's up on the high side of the roof, because that's going to be a different condition than this one. So make your way over there, take a picture on the outside, take some pictures of the inside. Just take pictures, lots and lots of pictures. And it should do it for pictures to look at that we have today. So that's that, and I think that's everything. That should get you at least where you can start planning it. We didn't go over this. I was kind of trying to put everything together so you could see how big you had it. So every one of these little spaces is 100 inches or 8 feet. So it's a pretty big run. You're 12 foot 10 and then 3 foot 6, so 16 feet from the floor up to the curb. I don't know if you want to use a ladder or if you need a scissors lift. You can only go so far with the scissors lift, but it's still 200 odd feet, so that's got to help. Then you have to have another one on the lower platform because you're not going to be able to move it. So you'd have a high one and a low one, and then probably a ladder to go with it for the guy with the other end of the tape. Mostly you're going to want to be up on the roof, and you're going to want to attach D-rings to the skylight so you can tie up for the whole length. Don't hesitate. They're going to be like $40 a piece to buy them D-rings. Just get what you need and put them in. It's going to be way faster to just do it, and then we'll have it done. And that was the big. This was just meant to give you an overview of the whole deal. So this is where that mezzanine ends. There's an escalator and stairs, but it's a big open cavity. This is pitching down. This pitches to match it. The mezzanine is level, and I think this is level as well. That was about all I got. And I'll get you some drawings here pretty quick. Hopefully this helps.